you doing, Jersey? Welcome to the Star Ledger Newsroom, Tuesday, December 23rd. A jury convicted 5 men in a plot to kill U.S. soldiers at Fort Dix yesterday. Now, the 5 Muslim immigrant men were found guilty of conspiracy, but not guilty of attempted murder. They face life in prison when they are sentenced, and there's so many larger issues that played out in this trial. Remember, the FBI had used some controversial tactics using paid informants, both of whom had pretty checkered pasts to infiltrate the group. Defense attorneys said that they were goaded into plotting the attack. Now, also, the men didn't actually have the weapons to carry out the attacks, but were caught trying to buy them from those FBI informants. But the men had talked about carrying out an attack. They had engaged in training, they had watched a lot of incriminating videos, and that was enough for the jury to decide that they're guilty. We have video reaction from both sides here, as well as John Martin, our Star Ledger reporter who covered the entire trial. He is on the line, and we'll talk with him as well.
The jury obviously took a very common sense approach to the evidence in this case, and that is that when a group of people take the steps that were presented here in this court, it was not just talk. Only twisted criminals would enjoy the videos that were played in this courtroom. That was not just talk. Only twisted criminals would train for jihad, as was done here. That was not just talk. Only twisted criminals would take the surveillance steps that were taken here. That was not just talk. And only twisted criminals would purchase AK-47s and other deadly weapons. That was not just talk.
But I think we have to understand something, that this time in history, not unlike after, say, for instance, Pearl Harbor, when Japanese Americans were looked at with a great suspicion, I think we're at a time in our history where, unfortunately, this phenomenon may exist, that young Muslim individuals, particularly young men who may be filled with a little too much testosterone and maybe some bad judgment, say things that get themselves in, as you can see, a serious amount of trouble.
All right, with me is John Martin, who covered this trial nonstop and is now trying to get some Christmas shopping done. John, thanks for checking in with us.
Sure, Brian, no problem.
So just from a layperson's perspective, and I followed this pretty closely, but I wasn't covering it, so I'm just sort of the average person. I watched the clips of the prosecutors and the defense, and I'm in a sort of strange situation where I kind of agree with both sides. I mean, I really feel like maybe these guys were just a bunch of knuckleheads who didn't have the capacity to carry this out. Maybe they were just talking, but nonetheless, they're talking about killing U.S. soldiers. Is that kind of what the conclusion the jury reached too?
Well, and I think it is more than just talk. I mean, and these guys were, if you saw the videos that they were listening to, watching, and actually would talk about, and you know, at times they almost seemed to be cheering on Al-Qaeda or the Taliban. And I think ultimately what the jury decided with the charge was they agreed that these guys conspired, they wanted to do something, and that maybe they had started to take some steps. We can debate on how big those steps were, but in acquitting them of attempted murder, they actually concluded, well, that they didn't actually move forward and take the steps to actually attempt to kill anybody. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but nonetheless, the conspiracy charge, you were saying earlier that to the average person, it looks like, okay, they were acquitted of attempted murder, that's the big charge. But the conspiracy charge was the meat of this case, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's really where the terrorism charge comes in. The fact that these guys had agreed and settled on a plot to actually attack members of the military. And so that's what's actually going to be the hammer for them when sentencing comes. That's what exposes them to ultimately up to life in prison.
Now, the bigger issues that this case brought out was the FBI's use of informants, paid informants, who the defense said goaded these guys into it.
Right.
This has been, though, that they're setting up a track record here where this works, right? I mean, there's been other cases around the country, and
right. I mean, and their argument is, hey, look, how are we supposed to actually get in with these guys? The prosecutor yesterday, Ralph Merrill, the acting U.S. attorney, made a comment at the press conference. He said, in my experience, criminals don't associate with angels. Criminals associate with other criminals. So, you know, those are the kinds of people that they need. Those are the kinds of people they use. And it becomes a matter of the lesser of two evils. Okay, here's a guy who did a bunch of bank frauds, but he's agreed to help us expose what they believe is a much more serious and much graver crime, or potential crime, which would be a terrorist act.
All right, John, thanks a lot. Good luck with your shopping out there.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Right, take it easy.
Bye-bye.
All right, you know you can learn valuable lessons from reading the news every day. Here's today's little life lesson. You're sending threatening hate mail. Double check to make sure you're sending it to the right address. Police in Holland Township are trying to figure out who sent a letter to a family mistaken for another family who had named their son Adolf Hitler. Remember, this family last week caused controversy when they went to a local ShopRite, and the ShopRite refused to customize the cake by writing "Happy Birthday Adolf Hitler" on the cake. They took it to Walmart, and Walmart did it for them. But now police say someone sent a letter intended for that family but got the wrong Campbell family in Holland Township. Police are now looking for the misguided Hitler hater. Meanwhile, neighbors are still coming to terms with the little Adolf Hitler next door.
I had no idea that they were that type of a neighbor. Well, I always thought they were a little on the white trashy side.
I was surprised. I don't know the people. I don't know a lot of my neighbors.
People do enough research on this character before they name their children after him. He was an absolute monster. I hope that he just goes with the school with the name of Adolf H. Campbell instead of being called Adolf Hitler Campbell. Parents should have done more research before they turn around and idolize such a historical monster. I think they could have come up with something else. Why didn't they call him Pope Pius or something? Why of all things Adolf Hitler?
All right, tomorrow's Christmas Eve, so enough with the hating. It's time for a little pleasant, nice news from Holland Township.
Santa Claus is one busy man. For 364 days a year, he calls upon the Mills family of Edelweiss Farm to tend his reindeer. The family has 9 reindeer, and they spend the holiday season visiting various spots in New Jersey.
With the reindeer, wherever we go, it's one of the biggest crowd pleaser.
I've never seen a reindeer before. It's cool. I've never seen one, like I said. This is our first time, my granddaughters and I. So it's amazing.
Oh, that makes you feel good. Especially when the kids come and they look at the reindeers and they say, "Oh, real reindeers, can they fly?" Sure they fly on December 24th. That's when the magic word comes and the reindeers will fly.
All right, that wraps up Ledger Live. Listen, we want to hear from you. LedgerLive@starledger.com is the email address, and you can always log on, sound off on the news blogs at NJ.com as well. All right, Jersey, take it easy.